Look at the grocery bill that shocks you, the rent check that drains you, and the house that feels forever out of reach. You wonder why the stock market parties at record highs, while your savings quietly evaporate. The answer is a dangerous illusion. To avoid the visible breadlines of 1929, we have simply drowned the economy in a flood of printed money. We keep zombie companies alive. We inflate the assets of the wealthy. And we leave you to pay the price through the silent theft of inflation. We traded a sudden crash for a slow poison, but as the cup runs dry, we must ask, have we fixed the system? Or just delayed the inevitable reckoning? If the poisoned chalice of today tastes sweet, it is only because we have forgotten the bitter aftertaste of a century ago. We treat the Great Depression as a museum exhibit, a black and white tragedy of primitive markets and naive ancestors, safely sealed behind the glass of history. We assume that because we carry supercomputers in our pockets and employ PhDs to run our central banks, we are immune to the catastrophes of the past. But this arrogance is the very lock upon our cage. The ghost of 1929 is not haunting a graveyard. It is sitting at your kitchen table, watching you decide which bill to pay this month. To understand why the ground beneath you feels so unstable, we must first recognize that the Roaring Twenties was not a unique anomaly, but the precise architectural blueprint for the fragile world we inhabit today. The premise of the 1929 collapse was rooted in a fatal delusion, the belief in a new era, just as we worship the soft landing narrative today. The experts of the 1920s worshiped the permanently high plateau. It was a time when the mechanic, the baker, and the banker stood shoulder to shoulder, intoxicated by a stock market that defied gravity, convinced that the laws of arithmetic had been rewritten by American ingenuity. They believed prosperity was no longer a reward for production, but a birthright delivered by the ticker tape. But on October 24, 1929, the Cathedral of Capitalism became a slaughterhouse of dreams. The panic was so visceral that the mechanical tickers physically lagged hours behind the selling, meaning men were going bankrupt in real time, but wouldn't know the extent of their ruin until the paper finally caught up with the catastrophe. Look into the mirror of the present. Do you see a different world, or do you see the same reflection in higher resolution? We have simply replaced the shouting traders with silent, high-frequency algorithms, and the slowing ticker tape with the instant devastation of the digital margin call. We have built a machine that processes greed and fear at the speed of light. Yet we remain governed by the same Stone Age psychology. The premise remains identical, the dangerous conviction that this time is different, that debt is wealth, and that asset prices can detach from reality forever without gravity ever demanding its due. And this is where the history lesson ends and your reality begins. You feel the return of this ghost not in the stock indices, but in the crushing weight of your daily existence. Just as the farmers of the 1920s faced ruin long before Wall Street crashed, you are the canary in the coal mine of this new crisis. You see the parallel in the grocery aisle, where the price of survival climbs while the package size shrinks, a silent theft of your labor. You feel it in the housing market, which has transformed from a foundation of the American dream into a gated citadel for the ultra-rich, pulling the ladder up just as you reach for the bottom rung. You feel it in the sinking realization that your savings are a melting ice cube, dissolving in the heat of inflation faster than you can freeze them. The disconnect between the soaring stock market and your shrinking quality of life is not a paradox. It is the classic symptom of a system in the late stages of denial. We have traded the visible breadlines of the past for the invisible poverty of the present, where we drown in credit but starve for solvency. The ghost of 1929 is not a story about stocks falling. It is a story about the inevitable collision between the illusion of wealth and the reality of math. The stage is set. The actors are in place, and the script remains unchanged. We are simply waiting for the curtain to fall. But if the ghost of 1929 is the premise of our reality, what is the drug that keeps us blinded to its presence? How do you convince a rational world to ignore the cracks in the foundation? You distract them with a party so loud, so dazzling, and so intoxicated with promise that gravity itself seems to be a relic of the past. To understand why the ground beneath us is shaking, we must step out of the quiet anxiety of our kitchens and walk into the roaring casino of the 1920s. A decade that did not simply grow, it screamed with the mechanical hum of a revolution that looks terrifyingly familiar. In 1929, the world was being rewired by the miracles of the age: the radio, the automobile, and the electric grid. It was a time of blinding optimism where companies like RCA, the Radio Corporation of America, were the gods of the market. Soaring from $85 to $500 a share without paying a single dime in dividends. Investors didn't care about profits. They bought the dream, the narrative. The unshakable conviction that the radio was not just a product, but a paradigm shift that rendered old valuation metrics obsolete. Does this rhythm feel familiar? Look at your screen today. We have replaced the radio with artificial intelligence, the Model T with the electric vehicle, and the telegram with the blockchain. We look at the parabolic charts of NVIDIA, the cult-like devotion to Tesla, and the fever dreams of meme coins. And we tell ourselves the exact same lie that doomed our ancestors. This time is different because of the technology. We convince ourselves that we have unlocked a cheat code for eternal wealth. That trees can finally grow to the sky because they are digital. But this techno-euphoria is the deadliest trap in finance. It blinds us to the difference between a transformative innovation and a sustainable investment. The internet changed the world. But the dot-com bubble still burst. The radio changed the world, but RCA still lost 90% of its value. The technology survives, but your savings do not. But the danger is not just what we are buying, it is who is buying it. There is a legendary story from 1929 about Joe Kennedy, the patriarch of the Kennedy dynasty, who knew it was time to sell everything when his shoeshine boy started giving him stock tips. It is a chilling anecdote not because of who the boy was, but because of what he represented, the exhaustion of the greater fool. When the taxi driver, the cook, and the shoeshine boy are fully invested, there is no one left to buy. And the only direction left is down. In the Roaring Twenties, the stock market became the national pastime. A dinner table conversation where everyone was a genius because the line only went up. Now, look at the democratization of speculation in our own time. We have moved the casino from the marble halls of Wall Street directly into our pockets. With apps like Robinhood, we have gamified our financial future, turning investing into a dopamine-fueled video game, or confetti rains down on the screen when we make a trade. We see the modern shoeshine boys in the Reddit threads and Telegram groups, pumping tokens with no utility and companies with no earnings, driven not by analysis, but by the desperate fear of being left behind. And here lies the tragic empathy of our moment. Why are you speculating? Why is the teacher the nurse? And the student trading risky options on their lunch break? It is not merely greed, it is desperation. When wages stagnate for decades, while the cost of living explodes, the slow and steady path of saving feels like a road to nowhere. You gamble because the economy has backed you into a corner, where a moonshot feels like the only escape velocity from a life of financial mediocrity. You are not fighting the market. You are fighting the realization that honest labor no longer guarantees a secure future. But if euphoria is the drug, then leverage is the poison that turns a correction into a funeral. In the 1920s, the illusion of wealth was built on buying on margin. A man with $10 could borrow 90 more to buy $100 of stock, as long as the market rose. He felt like a king, owning assets he couldn't afford with money he didn't have. It was a magic trick that turned a pauper into a prince until the clock struck midnight. When the market dipped, the broker didn't ask for the money, he demanded it. The margin call forced selling, which drove prices lower, which triggered more margin calls, a doom loop that evaporated billions in days. Today, we have taken that primitive leverage and injected it with nuclear fuel. We have 0 DTE, 0 days to expiration, options, financial bets that live and die in a single trading session, allowing retail traders to leverage their life savings on the movement of a single afternoon. We have crypto exchanges offering 100x leverage, where a 1% move against you wipes you out instantly. We are building skyscrapers of wealth on foundations of sand, believing that because the building is tall, it must be strong. And as the euphoria fades, as the digital confetti settles on the floor, we are left staring at the naked truth. We have built a shimmering castle in the sky, but we have forgotten to check the ground upon which it floats. For beneath the dazzling lights of technology and the addictive rush of leverage, there are 3 ancient monsters waiting in the dark basement of the economy, 3 structural pillars that have already rotted through, waiting for the slightest breeze to bring the whole temple down. If the shimmering castle of the Roaring Twenties was built on the quicksand of euphoria, what were the pillars holding it up? What were the structural beams that looked so solid from the outside, yet were being hollowed out by termites from within? As we descend from the penthouse of the stock market into the basement of the real economy, we find three monstrous realities that link the catastrophe of 1929 to the precariousness of 2025. These are not merely economic indicators. They are the three horsemen of the financial apocalypse, an ocean of unpayable debt, a canyon of inequality, and a central bank trapped in a prison of its own making. The first pillar, the most massive and the most terrifying, is the debt trap. In a healthy society, debt is a bridge to the future. Money borrowed today to build a factory, pave a road, or educate a child, creating enough value to pay it back tomorrow. But we have perverted this tool into a weapon against ourselves. We have stopped borrowing to produce and started borrowing to consume. Look at the ledger of the human race today. We are staring at a mountain of global debt exceeding $300 trillion, a number so astronomical it loses all meaning until you realize what it truly represents. We have stolen the prosperity of our children and our grandchildren to pay for the illusions of today. In 1929, the debt was dangerous, but it was a localized infection. Today, it is systemic sepsis. We are not growing. We are hallucinating growth through a credit card. When you look at the GDP numbers that politicians brag about, you are not seeing income. You are seeing leverage. We borrowed for the wars. We borrowed for the pandemics. We borrowed for the stock buybacks, and we borrowed just to keep the lights on. The ratio of debt to GDP has shattered the records set during the Great Depression and World War II. We are living in a mansion where the furniture, the food, and even the walls are leased on terms we can never fulfill. The question is no longer if we can pay it back. Mathematically, we cannot. The question is simply, when will the creditors realize that the emperor has no clothes? And what happens when the collective margin call of the world finally rings? But who holds this debt and who holds the assets? This brings us to the second pillar. The great social fracture, inequality. If you want to understand why the economy feels like a lie, look no further than the gap between the penthouse and the pavement. The Roaring Twenties were notorious for their Gilded Age disparity, where the tycoons lit cigars with $100 bills while farmers lost their land. But the chasm of 1929 looks like a crack in the sidewalk compared to the Grand Canyon we face today. The top 1% now holds more wealth than the entire middle class combined. A concentration of power that suffocates the very engine of capitalism. Here is the cold economic logic that no amount of optimism can cure. The ultra-rich do not spend their money. They hoard it, they invest it, they speculate with it. A billionaire cannot eat 1 million dinners or drive 1,000 cars. The engine of the economy is the remaining 99%. You, your neighbor, the teacher, the mechanic. But when the wealth is sucked to the top, the bottom 99% are left with stagnant wages and soaring costs. To maintain the illusion of the American dream, to keep buying the cars and the homes that the TV says you should have, you have had to replace income with debt. This is why the economy feels hollow. Consumer demand is not real. It is synthetic, masked by credit cards and buy now, pay later schemes. We have built a giant with feet of clay. When the credit tightens, as it always does, the spending stops. When the spending stops, the factories close. When the factories close, the jobs vanish. It is a crisis of overproduction meeting a crisis of underconsumption, a snake eating its own tail. The wealthy have bid up the price of assets so high that they have priced an entire generation out of ownership, turning the citizenry into a permanent class of renters, serving lords they will never see. And who is the architect of this fragile architecture? Who is the guardian charged with keeping this teetering structure from collapsing? This is the third and most dangerous pillar, the central bank's dilemma. In 1929, the Federal Reserve committed a sin of omission. They tightened money too late to stop the speculation, and then, when the banks began to fail, they stood back and let the liquidity drain away, turning a recession into a depression. They were incompetent, yes, but they had tools they refused to use. Today, the situation is infinitely more perilous. The Federal Reserve of 2025 is not just incompetent, it is trapped. It is checkmated by the very monster it helped create. We call this fiscal dominance. The government's debt is so massive that the interest payments alone are threatening to consume the entire budget. This places the Federal Reserve in an impossible vice grip, a choice between two suicides. If they raise interest rates high enough to kill the inflation that is eating your paycheck, they will bankrupt the government and collapse the debt mountain, triggering a deflationary depression that would make the 1930s look mild. But if they lower rates to save the government and the stock market, they will unleash hyperinflation that burns the currency to ash. They are walking a tightrope over a volcano, holding a tiger by the tail. Every time they print money to patch a crack in the wall, they weaken the foundation. They have suppressed interest rates for so long that they have destroyed the ability of the market to price risk. Companies that should have died years ago, the zombies, are kept alive on life support, draining resources from the healthy. They have taught the market that risk does not exist, that Daddy Fed will always be there to catch the falling knife. But what happens when the safety net itself is torn? What happens when the savior needs saving? We are staring at the end of the monetary road. The tools that saved us in 2008 and 2020, cutting rates and printing money, are now the very things causing the problem. The medicine has become the poison. The Fed is like a driver who has sped up to avoid a crash, only to realize he has run out of road and is now careening toward a cliff edge with no brakes. These three pillars, unpayable debt, extreme inequality, and a trapped central bank, are not separate problems. They are a single fused explosive device. The debt fuels the inequality. The inequality demands more cheap money from the Fed, and the cheap money creates more debt. It is a doom loop spinning faster and faster. In 1929, when these pillars collapsed, the damage was horrific, but it was largely contained within national borders. The fallout took months to cross the oceans. But today, the wires are connected differently. The dynamite is not just under Wall Street. It is under Tokyo, under London, under Shanghai. We have built a machine so interconnected that when one pillar falls, it does not just bring down a roof, it brings down the sky. And that leads us to the terrifying difference that makes our current moment unique in human history: the sheer, unmanageable scale of the coming storm. If the three pillars of debt, inequality, and central bank impotence are the rotting bones of the global economy, then the digital wires that connect them are the fuse that will detonate the collapse. We often comfort ourselves with the historical memory that the Great Depression was a slow-moving tragedy, a storm that gathered over months, giving families time to harvest their crops, sow their cash into mattresses, and prepare for the winter. But that comfort is a dangerous relic of a disconnected world. In 1929, the contagion of panic had to travel by steamship across the Atlantic and by telegraph across the plains. A crash on Wall Street took weeks to starve a factory in Berlin and months to bankrupt a farmer in Argentina. The destruction was brutal, yes, but it was bound by the friction of physical distance. Today, distance is dead. We have built a financial nervous system so hyperconnected that a seizure in one limb kills the entire body instantly. A single mouse click by a panicked algorithm in a Manhattan high-rise can liquidate a retirement fund in Tokyo, shutter a factory in Shenzhen, and spike the price of bread in Cairo, all in the span of a millisecond. We are no longer living in separate economic rooms. We are locked in a single, pressurized submarine. When a leak springs, the water does not care which side of the vessel you are sleeping in. We all drown together. This is the terrifying reality of global scale. The firewalls that once separated nations and industries have been torn down in the name of efficiency, leaving us with a system that is perfectly optimized for contagion. Where a financial virus becomes a global plague before the news anchor even has time to read the teleprompter. But the speed of the crash is nothing compared to the invisible monster lurking beneath the surface. In 1929, the danger was visible. It was worthless stocks, vacant lots, and shuttered storefronts. Today, the true danger is hidden in the shadows. In a dark casino known as the shadow banking system, this is the realm of derivatives, complex financial bets stacked upon other bets. A hall of mirrors where value is derived not from anything real, but from gambling on the movement of numbers. Warren Buffett, the Oracle of Omaha, did not mince words when he looked into this abyss. He called them financial weapons of mass destruction. Why? Because the scale of this shadow market is beyond human comprehension. While the global economy, the sum of all the food, cars, houses, and services produced by every human on Earth, stands at roughly $100 trillion, the notional value of the derivatives market is estimated to be 10 times that size. Think about that. We have built a quadrillion-dollar tower of bets, balancing on top of a $10 trillion economy. This monster did not exist in 1929. Back then, when the market fell, it hit the ground. Today, if the derivatives market unravels, there is no ground. There is only a bottomless pit. It is a nuclear bomb buried under the foundations of the global financial system, ticking quietly while the politicians debate tax rates. Completely oblivious to the fact that one wrong wire cut could vaporize the wealth of nations overnight. And what holds this terrifying machinery together? What prevents the bomb from detonating? It is not gold. It is not land. It is not the promise of the government. It is a single, fragile, and ephemeral emotion: trust, money. In our modern fiat age, is nothing more than a collective hallucination. It works only because we all agree to believe it works. But as we saw in 1929, and as we are beginning to see again, trust is the first casualty of fear. Yet the way trust dies has changed, and that change is lethal. Analyze the collapse of Silicon Valley Bank in 2023. It was the second largest bank failure in U.S. history. Yet if you walked past their headquarters that day, you would have seen nothing. There were no angry mobs in trench coats banging on the doors, no police lines holding back desperate fathers. The panic was silent. It was invisible. It happened in the bathrooms, in the coffee shops, and in the Uber rides of terrified depositors who simply pulled out their smartphones, swiped a finger, and drained $42 billion from the bank in a single afternoon. In 1929, a bank run was a physical event. It had friction, it had delays. It gave the system time to breathe. Today, a bank run travels at the speed of light. This is the sword of Damocles hanging over your savings. You believe your money is safe because you see the numbers on your banking app, but those numbers are just pixels. The actual cash isn't there. If the crowd, driven by a rumor on Twitter or a panic on Reddit, decides to move, the system cannot hold. We are walking on a frozen lake that is thinning by the hour. We trust the ice because it held us yesterday, and we trust it because everyone else is skating on it. But beneath our feet, the dark water of reality is waiting. And when the panic hits, when the speed of the digital run outpaces the reality of the physical vaults, the architects of this system will panic. They will reach for the only tool they have left, a tool that looks like a shield but acts like a trap. They will intervene. But as we are about to discover, the medicine they force down the throat of the dying economy is no longer the cure. It is the very poison that ensures the patient will never truly recover. When the panic sets in, when the digital bank run begins and the trust evaporates, what do the architects of our system do? Do they let the fire burn the dead wood? Do they allow the cleansing pain of correction to restore balance? No. In our modern age, they reach for the poison chalice. They intervene. We have moved from a world where failure was a possibility to a world where failure is politically forbidden, and in doing so, we have trapped ourselves in a cycle of intervention that is slowly suffocating the very economy it claims to save. This is the tragic irony of our time. The medicine we are forced to swallow is no longer the cure, it is the disease. We are living under the grand illusion of control. A hubris born from the belief that a few men in suits, armed with spreadsheets and printing presses, can tame the savage rhythms of the business cycle. They call it modern monetary theory or quantitative easing, sanitized terms designed to sound scientific, but let us call it what it truly is: counterfeiting with a license. The governments of the world have convinced themselves that they can outlaw winter. They believe that by flooding the system with trillions of dollars of made-up money, they can banish recessions forever. But ask yourself, can you print energy? Can you print time? Can you print the sweat of a worker or the bricks of a house? No. You can only print the claim on those things. And when you print more claims than there are goods, you are not creating wealth, you are diluting it. You are stealing value from every dollar already in existence, turning the currency in your pocket into a melting ice cube. And what is the consequence of this infinite liquidity? Look around you at the walking dead of the corporate world. By suppressing interest rates to zero, by flooding the market with cheap credit, we have created a plague of zombification. In a healthy economy, bad companies fail. It is brutal, yes, but it is necessary. The death of the old and inefficient clears the soil for the new and innovative. But today, the forest is never allowed to burn. Companies that are drowning in debt. Companies that produce nothing but losses are kept alive on the life support of cheap government money. They do not grow, they do not hire, they simply exist, sucking resources away from the productive economy. We have turned the marketplace into a museum of inefficiencies, a stagnation where the future is held hostage by the past. But the most corrosive effect of this intervention is moral, not financial. It is the rot of moral hazard. We have constructed a casino where the game is rigged so blatantly that the players have stopped caring about the rules. The mantra of the modern financial system is simple: privatize the gains, socialize the losses. When the big banks and the hedge funds gamble and win, they keep the billions. They buy the yachts, they buy the penthouses, they buy the politicians. But when they gamble and lose, you pay for it. The taxpayer pays for it. The currency pays for it. Big investors know that the government considers them too big to fail, and this guarantee acts like adrenaline for recklessness. Why look at the road when you know the airbag will always save you? Why fear the cliff when you know the taxpayer will build a bridge beneath your feet as you fall? And here is where the knife twists in the wound of the common man. You feel the pain of this policy every single day, even if you don't trade stocks. You wonder why the stock market hits record highs, while your standard of living hits record lows. This is the mechanism of the poison chalice, asset inflation. When the central banks print trillions, that money does not flow into your paycheck. It does not go to the factory floor. It flows to the people who are closest to the spout, the banks, the corporations, the ultra-wealthy. They use this free money to buy assets. They buy the houses, driving the prices up until you can only afford to rent. They buy the stocks, driving the indices up until the market looks invincible. They get asset inflation, their wealth explodes. You get price inflation, your cost of living explodes. It is the greatest transfer of wealth in human history. Moving silently from the savers to the borrowers, from the workers to the owners, from the poor to the rich. It is not an accident, it is the design of the system. History offers us a grim comparison. In 1930, the policymakers made a fatal mistake of austerity. Men like Andrew Liquidate stocks, liquidate the farmers, believing that purging the rot would heal the system. It was cruel. And it turned a recession into the Great Depression by starving the economy of cash when it needed it most. Today, we have swung the pendulum to the opposite extreme. We are making the mistake of infinite liquidity. If 1930 was death by freezing, 2025 is death by fever. We are terrified of the purge. So we keep pumping stimulants into a dying patient, terrified that if the heart stops for even a second, it will never start again. We have traded the sharp, acute pain of a crash for the chronic, wasting disease of stagnation and inflation. We have chosen to die slowly rather than face the surgery. But the tragedy of the pendulum is that it never stops in the middle. It swings until it breaks the clock. We are now addicted to the intervention. The markets panic at the mere suggestion that the money printer might stop. We are trapped in a doom loop where every solution creates a bigger problem, requiring a bigger solution, requiring more debt, more printing, more distortion. We have built a dam to hold back the river of reality. And every day we add another layer of concrete, cheering as the water level rises higher and higher behind it. But water always wins. The pressure is building. The cracks are spreading, and the valley below, where you and I live oblivious to the volume of the flood that is waiting to be unleashed. And why do we not see the dam cracking? Why do we continue to dance in the shadow of this towering risk? It is because the intervention has done something else. It has blinded us. It has distorted the signals of the market and the signals of our own survival instincts, lulling us into a psychological coma. We have been conditioned to believe that the government is omnipotent, that technology is a shield, and that the warnings of history are merely ghost stories for children. This blindness is the final ingredient, the psychological mechanism that ensures we will not see the end until it is already here. If the poison of intervention numbs the pain, then the blindness of denial kills the patient. Why, throughout history, do the most devastating crashes happen when confidence is at its absolute peak? Why do the passengers of the Titanic continue to dance while the water laps at their ankles? It is because of the most dangerous flaw in the human operating system, the refusal to believe that the music can't stop. We are currently living through a masterclass in willful blindness, a psychological blockade that prevents us from seeing the avalanche even as the snow begins to bury us. Denial is not a lack of information. It is a rejection of reality. Rewind the tape to the autumn of 1929, in the days leading up to the annihilation of wealth. The headlines did not scream danger. They whispered comfort. The captains of industry and the titans of politics stood before the microphones and declared that the economy remains fundamentally sound, that the dips were just a healthy correction, and that the path to prosperity was paved in gold. They were not lying, they were delusional. They were trapped in the echo chamber of their own success. Does this sound like the news feed on your phone today? We are drowning in confirmation bias. We curate our reality, listening only to the voices that tell us what we want to hear, and dismissing the rest as noise. When a voice rises from the wilderness, like this script, or like the few prudent analysts warning of the debt bubble, we do not listen. We label them doom-mongers. We call them pessimists. We mock them for missing out on the party. We choose the comfortable lie over the uncomfortable truth, because the truth demands that we change, and change is painful. We sleep soundly in a burning house because we have convinced ourselves that the smoke is just fog. But while the psychology of denial remains ancient and unchanged, the machinery of our destruction has evolved into something cold, calculating, and terrifyingly fast. In 1929, the crash was driven by human beings. It was driven by men in sweat-stained shirts screaming across a crowded floor, fueled by adrenaline and fear. Humans hesitate. Humans have doubt. Humans have mercy. A broker might pause before selling out a widow's pension. A trader might hold the line out of sheer hope. Today, the human element has been evicted. Welcome to the era of algorithmic doom. 70 to 80% of all trading volume in the modern markets is not executed by humans, but by high-frequency trading algorithms. These are not investors, they are executioners. They do not feel fear, they do not feel hope, they do not feel remorse. They process information in nanoseconds. Reacting to keywords, price movements, and volatility triggers faster than a synapse can fire in your brain. This is the nightmare scenario. When the denial finally breaks and the sell-off begins, who will step in to buy? In the old days, a human might see value and step in. Today, when the algorithm's risk model says sell, it sells everything. Instantly. Simultaneously. It creates a flash crash, a vertical line of destruction that evaporates trillions of dollars before you can even open your banking app. We have handed the keys of the global economy to machines that are programmed to survive by killing the market. When the cascade starts, there is no negotiation. There is only the ruthless logic of code, dumping assets into a void where no buyers exist. And when the wealth evaporates, what happens to the society that was built upon it? This brings us to the final and perhaps most tragic parallel: social fragility. Economics is not just about numbers. It is the bedrock of peace. When the foundation cracks, the house of democracy begins to tilt. Look at the history of the 1930s. The Great Depression did not just bankrupt bank accounts, it bankrupted faith in the system. The despair of the masses became the fuel for the madmen. From the ruins of the German economy rose the shadow of fascism. From the hunger of the people rose the fist of dictatorship. Extremism is the child of economic anxiety. When people cannot feed their families, when they feel the system is rigged against them, they do not vote for moderation. They vote for the arsonist who promises to burn it all down. Look at our world today. Can you feel the temperature rising? We are already living in a time of historical political polarization. The left and the right are no longer opponents, they are enemies. The trust in institutions, the media, the government, the courts, is shattering. And this is happening while the illusion of prosperity is still holding. Imagine what happens when the illusion breaks. Imagine the anger of a population that realizes their savings are gone, Their debts are unpayable, and their leaders have lied to them. The economy is the glue that holds civilization together. When the glue dissolves, the friction burns. We are sitting on a powder keg of social unrest. And the economic crisis is the match. We are arguing about culture wars and political tribes, completely ignoring the fact that the ground beneath our feet is about to give way. The danger is not just that we will lose our money. It is that we will lose our humanity, turning on each other as the scarcity mindset takes hold. We are walking blindfolded toward a cliff, guided by machines that have no soul, in a society that has no patience. The denial is the anesthetic, the technology is the scalpel, and the society is the patient waiting on the table. We have convinced ourselves that the surgery will be painless, that we can wake up in a better world without the trauma of the operation. But the anesthesia is wearing off. The machines are whirring to life. And as the first sharp pang of reality cuts through the fog of our denial, we are left with the final, haunting question. When the system resets, as it inevitably must, what will be left standing in the ruins? And more importantly, will you be prepared to navigate the world that comes after? If we stand amidst the wreckage of our denial, staring into the face of a machine that has forgotten its makers, does this mean hope is lost? Does the inevitability of the crash mean the inevitability of your ruin? Absolutely not. To see the ghost of 1929 is not to surrender to it, but to learn from it. The tragedy of the Great Depression was not just the economic collapse, it was the surprise. It was the millions of souls who believed the party would last forever, and were left with nothing when the music stopped. We, however, have the gift of hindsight. We have the map. The question is whether we have the courage to follow it out of the burning theater, while the crowd is still mesmerized by the screen, to navigate the storm that is coming. We must first make peace with the oldest truth of nature, the necessity of the cycle. We have been conditioned to view a recession as a failure of policy, a mistake that must be corrected by printing money. But this is a lie. A recession is not a punishment, it is a cleansing. Think of the economy like a vast, ancient forest. For decades, we have suppressed every small fire, preventing the natural burning of the dead wood, the rotting leaves, and the weak underbrush. We thought we were saving the forest, but we were only stockpiling fuel. Now, we face the mega fire. Trying to stop the cycle of correction is like trying to stop the tide. You can build a wall, but eventually the ocean will crush it. We must accept that the fire is coming to burn away the zombie companies, the bad debts, and the false wealth. It is painful, yes, but it is the only way the sunlight can reach the soil again, allowing the new, the strong, and the real to grow. So, how do you survive the fire? The first step is a radical declaration of independence. You must realize that the cavalry is not coming. The government cannot save you, for they are the ones who lit the match. The central bank cannot save you, for their only tool is to devalue the money in your pocket. You must become the architect of your own lifeboat. This begins with the destruction of your chains, the chains of debt. In a world of deflation and collapse, debt is a death sentence. It is a claim on your future labor that you will never be able to repay. To leverage your life with the intensity of a man escaping a sinking ship. Every dollar of debt you pay off is a brick in the wall of your freedom. Do not be the margin trader of 1929. Be the prudent squirrel who stored his nuts while the grasshoppers sang. Once you are free, you must learn to distinguish between the illusion of price and the reality of value. In the mania of a bubble, we know the price of everything and the value of nothing. We chase the ticker symbol, the green line on the screen, the digital token that promises instant riches. But when the lights go out, pixels cannot feed you. You must diversify out of the paper promises of the system and into the tangible reality of the earth. History teaches us that when faith in currency dies, humanity retreats to the eternal. Gold, which has survived every empire, land, which provides the sustenance of life, and skills, which can never be inflated away or confiscated. If the stock market went to zero tomorrow, what would you actually own? If the answer is nothing, then you are merely a passenger on the Titanic. Build a fortress of real value. A garden you can harvest, a trade you can barter, a medal you can hold. These are the anchors that will hold you steady when the waves of volatility wash the speculators out to sea. But the most important asset you can cultivate is not financial, it is psychological. It is the resilience to stand apart from the herd. In 1929, the few who survived were the ones who were mocked for leaving the party early. They were the ones who refused to drink the Kool-Aid of permanent prosperity, to prepare for what is coming. You must be willing to look foolish today so that you can remain solvent tomorrow. You must train your mind to see opportunity where others see terror. When the crash comes, and it will be the greatest transfer of wealth in our lifetimes. Assets that are currently priced for the gods will fall back to earth. Available for pennies on the dollar to those who held cash, patience, and courage. The winter is not the end of the story. It is the season of preparation for the spring. As we reach the end of this journey, the ghost of 1929 fades back into the mist, leaving us with a final, haunting whisper. Mark Twain once famously said, "History doesn't repeat itself, but it rhymes." We are hearing the rhyme now. The melody of debt, the harmony of inequality, and the rhythm of speculation are playing the same song that ended the jazz age. The system is rhyming with the crash. The politics are rhyming with the unrest. The psychology is rhyming with the denial. The universe has given us a century of warnings, etched in the scars of our grandparents. So take a moment. Turn off the noise of the news. Close the app on your phone. Look into the mirror. The crisis is not a monster under the bed. It is a mathematical certainty waiting at the door. We have built a world of glass and convinced ourselves it is iron. But when the stone is thrown, the only thing that matters is not what you believed, but what you prepared for. The party is ending. The bartenders are covering the taps. The lights are flickering. Have you found your coat? Have you found the exit? Or are you still waiting for one last dance? Because this time, when the music stops, there will be no silence. There will only be the sound of history demanding its due. and the only question left to answer is, will you be a victim of the echo or the author of your own survival?